My name is Sugiyama. I'm the Japanese Technical Service Librarian at Yale University Library.
My name is Haruko Nakamura. I'm a librarian for Japanese collection.
So we are going to talk about data-driven collection analysis of Japanese LGBTQ collections using WorldCat Search API. We developed a small pilot project to look at all LGBTQ-related Japanese materials in WorldCat using the OCLC client, also known as OCLC collection, and the WorldCat Search API. We chose Japanese LGBTQ as a subject because we believed our holdings are strong in that area, and we like to continue to strengthen our collection. Please know that the collection we examined are limited to Anglo-American libraries. We only looked at Japanese catalog records that conform to Anglo-American cataloging standards such as ACR2, RDA, LC subject headings, LC name authority files. For example, holdings of most of the institutions in Japan were not included. Also, institutions which are not OCLC members or which do not upload local catalog records into OCLC are not reflected in this project. But we believe most of the CU institutions are OCLC members and create English catalog records. We hope our findings are therefore useful and relevant to most of you. So there are 4 objectives for this project. First objective was to develop technical skills and techniques to gather, analyze, and visualize data. This objective was more for my self-development as a tech service librarian. Technical services is becoming more data-driven and automation-driven, in part to contribute to digital initiatives. Programming and query languages such as Python and SQL, and data visualization tool, software, libraries such as Tableau and D3 are becoming core skills that metadata professionals are expected to have. The second objective was to explore effective, quick, and dirty approach to gather, analyze, and visualize data. This approach might be imperfect compared to a full-scale, sophisticated approach conducted by assessment experts. But if you don't have time and you want to get a reasonably accurate overview of collection, the quick and dirty approach gives you a good starting point. Instead of procrastinating, we wanted to try and experiment with it on our own and learn from it. The third objective is to get a bigger picture of Japanese LGBTQ collections. We wanted to know what's happening at Yale and beyond Yale. Some questions to answer were, how many Japanese LGBTQ materials are there in WorldCat? What are they? Which library has the most materials? What materials are unique at Yale? The last objective was to utilize the collection analysis for guiding future collection development and improving services. Haruko and I believed that looking at a bigger picture would allow us to make a new decision for our collection and potentially for cooperative collection development within the CL community. In order to study Japanese LGBTQ collections, we need to know the population of Japanese LGBTQ materials in WorldCat. The first step of our process was to identify English catalog records for Japanese LGBTQ materials in the OCLC client and to create a comprehensive list of OCLC numbers for those records. I identified them by processing batch searches, by relevant Library of Congress subject headings, Japanese National Library subject heading, and LC call numbers. As for LC subject headings, I used a list of LCSH of LGBT topics from Yale University's and Indiana University's LibGuides to create batch search queries. There are over 520 unique subject headings related to LGBTQ. However, I excluded some of them because they had a much broader meaning and were not necessarily LGBTQ specific all the time, such as AIDS, prostitution, and sex. In NDLSH, there were only 6 subject headings for LGBTQ topics. That small number was quite contrasting to over 520 LC subject headings. We used NDLSH just in case there are records that have no LCSH but have NDLSH. LC core number for LGBTQ topics are typically between HQ 73 and HQ 77965. We also used LC core numbers just in case there are records that have no LCSH but have LC core number. Once a batch search is complete, a batch search report will display and records matching any query will be saved in your file in OCLC connection. The list of matched records can then be exported to a spreadsheet. Since some records could be matched in more than one query and saved more than once in the list, you need to manually eliminate those duplicate records. In this project, we identified 890 unique materials in WorldCat, and the resulting spreadsheet provided the foundation to begin the process of analyzing Japanese LGBTQ collections. The spreadsheet exported from OCLC contains useful data elements such as title, OCLC number, LC call number, format, and publication year. Even looking at those data elements in the spreadsheet was insightful. As you can see, most of the materials are books and videos. There are 75 comic books among the books. The remaining materials include 1 audiobook, 3 PlayStation video games, and 45 serials. One serial was actually an online resource titled Japan, Sex and Gender, LGBTQ. It was a collection of websites about LGBTQ-related Japanese organizations and movements compiled by National Library of Australia using a web archiving service called Archive.it. It was the only resource found, only online resource found in WorldCat in this project. So here is the comparison of the 10 most used subject headings between the entire collection and Yale's local collection. Both collections had similar lineups. Not surprisingly, many materials are general works about homosexuality and gays. It is also notable that there are more materials focused on gay men and male homosexuality than ones focused on other LGBTQ topics. Most of the materials within WorldCat were published over the past 20 years, but the oldest material dated back to as early as 1687. It was Nanshoku Okagami by Ihara Saikaku. It is held by Princeton University. The second step of our process was to access WorldCat to get holding data using the WorldCat Search API. The WorldCat Search API is one of OCLC's web services, specifically used to get bibliographic holdings and location data. It is free for non-commercial use for OCLC members. We wrote a program in Python that talks to the WorldCat Search API. This example query asks the API to retrieve a maximum of 100 library locations that hold this OCLC number in JSON format. We also used Python code to create a table in a database and to parse and store certain location data there. So here is the short demo of accessing holding data by OCLC number. You create a list of OCLC numbers like this and run a program to get holding data of all OCLC numbers in the list. So, in this demo, the program retrieves OCLC symbols of holding institution for each OCLC record and count the number. As you see, this is how this kind of task can become faster and more powerful by taking advantage of the OCLC's web services. Holding data for all 890 records can be retrieved and stored in the database in a few minutes, whereas it would have taken a lot of time if you did it manually. OCLC's web services they make tasks that would be nearly impossible to consider on manual level possible. Based on the holding data retrieved, here is the bar chart that shows the number of titles per number of libraries that hold those titles. The majority of the materials are held by no more than 3 libraries. It is very rare that materials are held by more than 10 libraries. 5 most held Japanese materials are these. Most of them are videos. We found that video format has higher number of holding counts than print format. The reason is because not just academic libraries, but also many public libraries select those videos. It seems that while academic libraries select them to reflect scholarly interest in LGBTQ topics or film study topics, public libraries select them to provide entertainment and culture. And here are the top 3 libraries with large Japanese LGBTQ collections. Among more than 500 libraries, the library with the largest collection is the National Library of Australia. It holds 185 Japanese LGBTQ materials. The second was the University of Washington Libraries, which held 174 materials. It is the largest in the United States. And we were happy to find out that Yale was the third. Yale holds 162 materials. These libraries' numbers of holdings were very close by a narrow margin, and that gives us hope to make Yale #1 someday. While these libraries ranked closer, each library maintains uniqueness to some extent in their collection. There are only 40 items in common between the 3 libraries. Each area where layers are not intersecting indicates unique materials at each institution. And here are 25 materials that no other library has except Yale. But please know that it is possible that some other libraries hold different edition of these titles. For example, the video, Hatachi no Binetsu we have is year 2005 edition. While this edition was held only by Yale, other editions are cataloged separately and held by several libraries. Like I explained in earlier slides, holding data is very OCLC record specific. That being said, we checked most of the works listed on this slide are truly unique at Yale. We have also compared Yale's holding with that of Yale's consortium partners. IB Plus is a resource sharing initiatives comprised of the Ivy League institutions plus Chicago, Duke, Johns Hopkins, MIT, and Stanford. There are 113 materials that overlap between Yale and other consortium partners. The remainder of Yale's holding, which is 49 items, is unique among IB Plus collective collection. The blue intact area indicates 354 items that are not held by any IB Plus institutions. Next, Haruko will discuss challenges, actions, and future plans.
So before I go into how I incorporate those findings into improving collection development and public service, I'd like to mention a couple of challenges or area of improvements for this project. First, as Yukari already carefully explained, what currently define LGBTQ or LGBT or LGBTA related subject is in this project mainly using LCSH, NDLSH, LC code number, so forth. This can be outdated and subject and also subjective, and there could be other new concepts and terms describing outside of those control vocabularies. So in order to alleviate the situation, Yale creates a local subject headings, which will not be bounded by the rigid restriction of control vocabularies and freely defined by subject librarians and researchers. Another issue is that our data source for this analysis is only OCLC members' collection, like Yukari said. It means that we are not looking into any collections held in Japan, except Waseda, I think. And the majority of Japanese libraries do not use OCLC. And again, Yukari did mention that because of our analysis is based on OCLC individual records, there's issues of editions which can alter findings significantly if the collection is really large. Having said that, the Yukari's findings are very still useful. First, we can look at what are the Yale collection's uniqueness and the so-called area of improvement in order to enhance the collection to build a unique yet useful to not only our users but to the library, the consortial libraries we are in. Also, as many of you are looking into web archiving projects, I started looking into cooperative web archiving efforts so that we do not have to duplicate our efforts. I can also use the findings to enhance public service. For example, as you can see, I added titles that Yale uniquely owns to the LibGuide for users, and if you click the covers, it will go to the our catalog. So lastly, I want to throw a couple of possible projects in the future. As I look into other existing digital scholarship projects, perhaps we can start discovering and building terms through the crowdsourcing, and from not just the librarians, but also scholars in the field. And then multilingual, mining and all that kind of sort of thing. And also, you saw the breakdown. I mean, you saw the breakdown of the Yukari slide. That there's lots of breakdown of the collection by formats. If we are able to get more e-resource available on this subject in the future, we were able to do things like topic modeling and to find trends over the time, or word association, and then use that building the terms and also the topic modeling kind of finding to go back to use as a tools to again do enhancing collection development and also enhancing subject metadata and all that sorts of things. By the way, this is not Japan. This is Yale's Slavic collection. I think that's it. Thank you.